You sound like a fucking asshole. I just want to do a quick video. Just it was such a long story arc. I believe it deserves its own video of thoughts. Be too long to put into an intro and outro. It's so interesting how they set this up. Started off, it seemed ridiculous. Yeah, I just wasn't into it early in the early going. It was like, well, okay, ants. Even if you put the word chimera in front of them, I just wasn't vibing with the whole thing and why it happened now when you've had a whole thousands of years of evolution. But there is later they kind of imply it's happened in previous times, So whatever. So I wasn't so. What really brought me into this emotionally and completely invested me in this storyline was when they killed these two minor characters from the previous Hunter arc, Arrow Boy, and that chick who could send what is it? It's a specific kind of creature. I tried to say it was like she could use any bug to send messages, but apparently specific kind was it butterflies? I can't remember. I just know she was cute. She had a cute hat, and they fucking brutally murdered. They ate her alive. And then they killed Poco, I think his name is, but Arrow Boy. That was a cool fucking power, man. I love that dude. He had a great character design. It was a cool ass fucking power, and they fucking killed him, man. Brutally murdered him. Her, they just ate her fucking alive. That was like chased her through the fucking woods. It was like a horror movie, right? And then, just the way they did Old Boy, like they even dragged his death out. First you think he's dead, then he's still alive, but then they fucking kill him anyway. Shit pissed me off, man. That really pissed me off. I already don't like ants. Just in general. But then, once they did that shit, I was fucking 100% ant racist from then on. Hated those motherfuckers. Yeah, you were there with me. I'm not, breaking any new news here. I'm just saying. So, blinded by my hatred, kind of like some of these hunters were, it took me a long time to really appreciate these creatures for how interesting and versatile they were. And it was almost at the very end of the storyline. 61 fucking episodes. It's almost at the very end. Did I realize the whole story was about it wasn't the ant part of them that made them bad. It was the human part. Humanity polluted them, right? It's just. But humanity also led to their undoing. Which is very interesting to me. I love the whole thematic textual commentary he's doing here by saying the ants were fine until they got polluted with humanity. That fucked everything up both ways, right? Brought them down. So once you realize that that's the message he's delivering, the story he's telling, there's not going to be some big climactic fight between the king and Gon and shit like that. They did deliver us a really excellent fight. That was a great episode. They delivered that, but that isn't ultimately what killed him. What's interesting, what's even more interesting is even if he hadn't died, things would have changed. The king, it's like he would have negotiated peace. He would have kept his people in line. You assume, and you would have had a status quo very similar to what we have now. So it wasn't even necessary to kill him. They just killed him to make it tragic. Now he's not going to be an asshole, but then he dies anyway. Where before we just wanted him to die because he's an asshole. So they actually flipped. There were so many flips and reversals within the story arc, just unbelievable. And then my favorite part of the entire story arc was we had a run of about 20 to 30 episodes that basically took place over a few hours when they invaded the palace. They trashed that fucking place. I've never seen anything invest that kind of screen time into such a short amount of time. I'm just telling so many different stories, different perspectives, points of views, and everything. Man, it's just so well handled. So well handled. Probably was a little tedious at the moment if you're waiting a week between every single fucking episode. It's like, God damn, this feels like it's taking forever. But like I mentioned in a past video, that's kind of like the Sandman, graphic novel series. When it was month to month, it was probably tedious when you have a 13-issue story arc about the kindly ones. 13 fucking issues, like goddamn, not much has happened every month. You got to pull them all together, then you've got a great story. Then you can appreciate for what it actually is. But if you're paying month to month, you're getting ripped off. So, and some of the people who were paying month to month and waiting a month between, they were kind of irritated at the time. But that was a long time ago. Now the graphic novel lasts forever. So he was right to focus on the graphic novel, not on the servicing the week-to-week people. I mentioned that before, but that's kind of what happened here too. Whoever is watching this on a real-time basis, week to week, they got fucked. Because this must have just been, it must have been fucking tears. I'm sure there were people like, man, fuck this. Wake me up when it's over and I'll watch the whole thing. The only way to watch it is to binge it. You can't do that shit week to week. So this is one of the most impressive accomplishments in TV history, as far as I'm concerned. Like that 61 episode story arc. I'll stack it up with anything. Like, I think Person of Interest is a wonderful 5-season series. Really though, if you take it started from season 3, 4, and 5, you just take those. That's kind of like a separate story arc. You take those. That's the greatest run I've ever seen. Season 3, 4, and 5 is the greatest run I've ever seen on TV. This is up there with that. The only thing that makes this a little bit lower is that's more screen time. They had more time. They had to fill more time and make it work, right? You had 20, and then I think the last one was something like 13 or something like that. So you had like 53 45-minute episodes instead of 61 22-minute episodes. So you see, there's just more there. And I think in both cases, they really stuck to landing. In both cases, it really worked well. So this is up there, though. This is up there with some of the best I've ever seen. There's not many shows I put up on the God tier of shows. Person of Interest is one of them. And I consider Lost. I mean, people could kiss my ass and talk about how degraded in quality. Lost is one of those shows which I think kind of like this, by the way. You appreciate it more with time. The more you think about it, the more you appreciate it. That week-to-week shit you don't necessarily appreciate. That's why Lost gets so much shit. Because it's week-to-week stuff, and then they have to wait a long fucking 9 months between seasons and shit, So what started happening was Lost for the final 3 seasons, they would end in May, and then they wouldn't start up again until January. They didn't have the usual 3 months off. Those motherfuckers would be off 7 months, right? It really kind of sapped the energy from the fan base and made it more critical. They had more time to fucking, criticize and shit. So, anyway, the point is, I would put this up. This was an incredible writing accomplishment. Having said all that, I mentioned the complaint about Gon. We should have been in his head. I feel like that they fumbled the bag when it came with Gon. It had to be explained to me what happened. And maybe you would have to watch this story arc, and I don't remember where they talked about how you could trade things. You could trade years of your life for power. They did bring that up. Somebody pointed it out, and I did remember. Yeah, they had brought that up. But you'd have to fill in those dots, and you'd have to watch this repeatedly. And the people point out to me have seen it many times, so they've had an opportunity to do this. Then there's the original book where you can read it, where there's more details. But this has to stand on its own as far as the TV show goes. You shouldn't have to go to outside references. You shouldn't have to ask other people. You should be able to understand it yourself from what they present to you. And there was so many episodes, and whatever the setup was buried so far in the background, so far back in previous episodes that I don't know anybody that could have put this together the first time watching it. Having not read, if you haven't read the book, and this is your first time watching it, I defy you to have put this together the first time. I don't think anybody did. Maybe there's an Albert Einstein TV out there somewhere where it clicked immediately and he knew exactly what the fuck was happening. I don't believe it though. Maybe one or two, but not most. You're trying to service the entire TV audience. You're not trying to just service one or two people, right? So, and that's always a balancing act when it comes to TV. Do you dumb it down so much people are like, God damn, man, they've said this 3 times, we fucking get it. Or do you make it so fucking obtuse that only the Albert Einstein of fucking TV can ever figure it out, right? There's a balancing act there. It's never 0 or 100. It's always somewhere in the middle. You should strive for about 60%, You want 60% of your audience to be able to get it immediately. The other 40% will get it when they rewatch it, or maybe they're told, or they can figure it out later, right? But you want at least 60% of your audience to get it the first time through. I don't think anybody got that shit the first time through. Very few, maybe 5 to 10%. So, probably one of the best clues was his hair, actually. It's wait a minute, what the fuck does that mean? If I had thought about it more, I'd be like, wait a minute, that looks like that's about 10, 15 years of hair growth. That was a very important clue, and I think it was very clever of them to do that. And could have led me down the right path. It's okay, I know what he's doing. But then it's happening so fast, man. You'd have to pause it and think about it. So, and maybe sometimes you want to have something come out of nowhere. And then, because if you explain where it was coming out of, people would anticipate and they would get there before you did, right? So sometimes you want it to come out of nowhere. I don't know if this was necessarily one of those situations. I think it would have been more exciting if he had actually been negotiating with himself. If he had been thinking, and they spend so much time in people's heads, I think it's almost criminal they didn't do this. Right, we're going to have somebody analyze the way he's going to walk around a corner and what he thinks the other person's going to do. We spend 5 minutes of screen time him analyzing this shit. But we can't get 3 minutes with Go negotiating with himself, should I do this or not? Really? You're going to be in everybody else's head, but you're not going to be, it's just such a strange choice to me. Such a strange creative choice. You know, why they didn't do that. It's just, I'm sure they had a reason. You know, maybe it was a good reason. Since I don't know what the reason is, I can't speak to that. But not knowing the reason, it's such a weird choice. So I feel like they dropped the ball there. And it's a crucial character. Okay, so that aside, I don't like they did. I think, you know, for now we're not talking about writers. We're not talking about a TV show. We're just talking about if these characters were real people. I don't like they did it. I think, you know, I feel like he owes more to Killua than he owes to Kite. And don't you think it's a disservice to Killua for him to risk his life for this shit? Potentially because he wants to kill the Pieto. I think her name's Pieto. He wants to kill Cat Girl himself, by himself. You know? He doesn't want to wait for Killua to get there, you know, call or whatever. He wants to do it himself right then and there. Because of his ego, right? So, doesn't he owe more to Killua? It's kind of like, you know, a guy who has a wife and kids risking his life to save a stranger. Is that a good choice? It's a heroic choice. Nobody can sit there and say, damn, what a bitch. But is it fair to the wife and kids? Or, you know, you can flip it around. It doesn't have to be a gender thing. You know, a woman risking her life when there's kids and a husband, right? Or if it's just kids, if we're just talking about kids. Is it fair to the people that count on you and need you in their lives for you to risk your life for somebody who means less to you? Is that fair? This is a philosophical question. We're not going to settle here today. But I want you to think about that. Is that fair? Like, if I have people depending on me, I have kids who need me, I have a spouse who needs me, I have friends, a close friend who needs me, he's hanging on by a thread, he really needs me around, and I see a person about to dive off a bridge, is it fair then for me to run over and try to grab them, risking myself falling over the bridge too and possibly dying, to try to save them? Is that fair to the other people in my life? That's something you should think about. Now, of course, we'll all be like, well, why did you try to rescue him? If you explain this, then you sound like a fucking asshole and a coward. It sounds like you're making an excuse, like you were scared, but you're going to say, well, I just wanted to make sure I'm here for my kids and spouse and friend. But maybe that is the honorable choice. I mean, seriously, man. Don't you think? Is it at least worth thinking about? How dare you risk your life for somebody who means nothing to you or very little to you? Kite meant something to Gon, don't get me wrong. But like Kite didn't mean as much to Gon as Killua means to him. Did he? It's not like he was doing this for even Kurapika or Leoria, who he had spent more time with. Now, I've said, yeah, he's transferring a little bit about his father onto Kite. I get that, you know. And he felt like his own actions caused Kite to be put in that danger. So it's kind of like he killed him in a way. I get that. There's guilt, too. I get that. But I just think it was a disservice to Gon. So that's why this is a disservice to Killua. That's why I'm disappointed in Gon. You know, it was a selfish choice. You know, so it'll be interesting if that's brought up. I doubt it. I think this is probably just something I'm thinking about. But I'd love to hear what you think about any of this, about the whole Ant arc, all that stuff. But specifically, do you think it's fair to risk your life to save somebody who means less to you than other people do, people who need you, and people who you mean a lot to? You know, it's a complicated question, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. But yeah, so what a wonderful story arc. An incredible, fucking awesome story arc. Love it. I'm sure these last 12 episodes are going to be a letdown because there's nothing to top that, and there's not enough screen time to top it. But it'll be interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to the last 12 episodes.